Hello everyone, I'm John Kernan. Welcome to RPM Tonight. We start tonight's show with some very sad news. 19-year-old Adam Petty died Friday from injuries suffered in a single-car crash at the New Hampshire International Speedway. The fourth-generation driver was rushed to Concord Hospital, where a spokesperson says he died of head trauma. The crash occurred shortly after noon Friday during practice for the NASCAR Busch Series race to be run Saturday at Loudon.
I don't know. I mean, you can only build a car so safe. I mean, it's just must be a freak deal. I mean, I didn't get to see it, but I mean, it looked like the throttle stuck. There's just two black marks going straight into the wall, and I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, the whole country's gonna be mourning this when they hear about it.
Adam's father, Kyle, is out of the country. Adam's grandfather, Richard, is on his way to New Hampshire. Funeral arrangements are incomplete at this time. NASCAR President Bill France released this statement. It is difficult to express our sadness over the passing of Adam Petty. On behalf of the entire NASCAR family, we extend our hearts and prayers to his parents, Kyle and Patty, his grandparents, Richard and Linda, and the entire Petty family. The Pettys are an integral part of the sport of NASCAR. The entire NASCAR community will miss Adam Petty.
She was a close friend of mine. I mean, we're all, the so-called young guns in the sport, and, it hurts, and I pray hard for his family, and I'm very concerned for them, and, my thoughts are with them. And this racing's real small when you get to think about real-life things like this, and I'm just, just be praying for him.
It's just a tragedy, it's so hard to describe. I just feel so bad for his parents and his people that love him and the people he loves, and of course the fans are going to be really upset, and his family is the family in NASCAR, but mostly for his family. I've got kids, and I can only imagine what they're going through right now. I wish I could go home and be with my kids and hug them, and it's just sad.
We know every time we get in a car it's dangerous, but it's just when it hits that close to home, it's tough. Especially, anybody with someone so young and full of energy is tough.
I think Adam was friends with everybody in this garage, and probably one of the best people in this garage. So it's a great loss for everybody, and you never know. I mean, it's just one of them freak accidents, and I don't think it's really sunk into anybody yet that what we've lost. So it's a real bad deal.
Such a future in front of him. He's a good racer. It's pretty devastating for the sport. It's devastating to all of us as his friends. He's just such a good kid. It's really a shame. I mean, it hurts. It hurts bad, and we'll just have to pick up the pieces and go on. I mean, it's for the Petty family to meant so much to our sport to have to go through this. Our thoughts and prayers are with them.
What do you say? I mean, it's just a sheer tragedy that talented young race car driver, at just the start of his career, ends up losing his life at a place that I don't think anybody would expect to lose their lives at. And I've gotten to know Adam pretty good over the last year, and obviously I've known Kyle and Patty for a while, and we all just rode our motorcycles and did some fun things together. And it's just, I mean, what do you say? I mean, how can you even describe how bad it makes us all feel here? And what's the answer? Do we all just load up and go home? I think if Adam had a choice and was looking down on us right now, he'd want the show to go on, and he would want us all to race.
Adam ran his last race 1 week ago at the Richmond International Raceway. Ironically, it was his 43rd start in the NASCAR Busch Series. Of course, 43 is the number made famous by his grandfather, Richard. He finished 16th in that race, and I saw him Saturday afternoon at the track walking through the pit area with a big smile on his face. And that's how I'll remember Adam, a happy young driver with unlimited potential.
Adam Petty was born July 10th, 1980. He was the oldest of Kyle Petty's 3 children and the leader of a legendary family's next generation. Since NASCAR's very first race in 1949, the Pettys have been there. Lee was the sport's first superstar. Richard became the biggest star in motorsports history, and Kyle currently leads the Petty Racing organization. So when it came time for Adam to decide what he would be when he grew up, there was no decision to be made.
I've grown up around it all my life, from being 4 or 5 years old, loading up and going to Daytona every February and loading up and going to Atlanta every November. It's something that I've always done, and it's something that I've always been around. We live in a rural area where there's a lot of farms, and 95% of the farmers' kids grow up to be farmers, and me growing up and seeing my dad be a race car driver and my grandfather be a race car driver, it's something that I've always wanted to do. This is a dream come true.
In 1998, the announcement was made that 18-year-old Adam would realize his dream and get behind the wheel of his own Petty racing machine. He first turned laps in the Rough and Tumble American Speed Association. On September 30th at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, he made his first career ARCA Series start and won.
To be 18 years old, I'm gonna tell you, he did an incredible job tonight. I said my father's won 1,000,000 races, I've won a few races, but I've never been prouder of anybody or anything in my whole life.
How does that make you feel?
That made me want to cry right there.
In 1998, Adam made 3 NASCAR Busch Series starts. In 1999, he ran the full Busch schedule, finishing 3rd in the Rookie of the Year standings. Then the announcement came that Adam would run 5 Winston Cup races during the 2000 season. At only 19 years old, some questioned if the move was being made too soon. For the Pettys, there was no question to be asked.
Is he gonna be a Busch driver the rest of his life? No. He's gonna be a Winston Cup driver because that's what he wants to be. So the quicker we can get him the Winston Cup, then I think that's an advantage because he's going to learn to drive the heavy cars, he's going to learn the aerodynamics, he's going to learn the horsepower difference, and if he can do it at 19, he's going to be better at 29 than he was if he waits until he's 28 to try to jump into it.
That pressure is going to come. That pressure has come when I started racing. That people are going to expect you, certain people are going to expect you to live up to what your grandfather did or what your dad's done or what your great-grandfather's done. But I think that pressure would be different if my grandfather and my father put pressure on me. They don't put pressure on me at all.
Perhaps the biggest key to success for the Pettys has been the strength of the father-son relationships. It was true for Lee and Richard and Kyle, then Kyle and Adam. It was those relationships that helped Adam to realize his family's place in racing history, a place that he appreciated and never took for granted.
My great-grandfather started. He brought my grandfather along. Then my grandfather brought my father along, and my father's brought me along in the past 50 years. And that means a lot to show that a Petty's been racing ever since NASCAR started. So it is going to be neat to make your first Winston Cup start.
Adam made that first Winston Cup start at Texas on April 2nd, becoming the first 4th-generation professional athlete in American sports history. After a blown engine, he finished 40th, but his eyes were fixed brightly on the future.
I think in the 180 or 60 laps, I don't even know how many I ran, I became a 10 times better race car driver than I was before I ever started this race. I learned a lot today, and I was just starting to figure it out, and I thought we could get us a top 20 finish. We was running about 25th, so that happens. We'll load it up, take the same car to Charlotte.
Adam's great-grandfather Lee passed away just 3 days later. Adam's second Winston Cup start was to come this Memorial Day weekend. Instead, only his father and grandfather will be at the racetrack, racing, just as they have done for the last half-century, but mourning the loss of their family's brightest star.
In 43 starts on the NASCAR Busch Series, Adam Petty posted 3 top 5 finishes, including a career-best 4th-place run last year at California. His best career start was 2nd last fall at Memphis. Benny Parsons competed against Adam's grandfather Richard and also his father Kyle in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Benny is in Memphis, Tennessee to cover Saturday afternoon's Truck Series race, and he joins us from there. Benny, thanks for joining us. I know you're like me. You knew Adam from seeing him around the garage area and stuff, not close personal friends, but he was a young man who really enjoyed racing cars, didn't he?
That's all that he thought about was auto racing. I talked to his mother, Patty, a couple of years ago. I guess he was about 16 years old. And folks, believe it or not, Adam Petty used to be a little bit overweight, a lot heavier than he is now. And Patty said that's all he wants to do is he thinks about racing. That's all he wants to do. Someone told him that today's race car driver needs to be skinny, needs to be light because it's an advantage. So he goes out and loses about 50 pounds. I mean, I can't lose 5 pounds. Can you imagine some kid wanting to do this badly enough to go out and lose 50 pounds?
Well, you could certainly tell that he was motivated around the racetrack because, Benny, he was always walking around with a big smile on his face.
He had that Petty smile, that famous Petty smile, and you're right. He was always in the garage area talking to people, trying to find out all that he could about auto racing and all the things that he needed to learn because this was what he was going to do for the rest of his life.
Well, Adam was planning on moving into the Winston Cup Series next season. How much racing talent did you think he inherited from that Petty name?
Well, John, you just mentioned that fourth place finish that he had in California last year. When I walked out of the booth after that race, I did that race, and I said, wow, this kid really has some talent, because in his rookie year, he ran the California Speedway just like veterans, and I said, how good is he going to be in the future? I don't know. Now, this year, in 2000, he struggled a little bit. We haven't seen the Adam Petty that I know have been out there this year for whatever reason.
Well, Benny, you know, this is the kind of accident that everybody who covers racing knows can happen, but it doesn't make it any easier, does it?
No, it really doesn't. John, you're in Memphis today. I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon, the news hit this racetrack, what had happened in Loudon, New Hampshire. So you go to people that you know, and you start to talk to them, but you realize they don't want to talk, and all of a sudden you realize you don't want to talk either. Everyone is just kind of staring off into space with their own thoughts about Richard and Kyle and Linda and Patty and all the rest of the Pettys, and that's the thoughts that we have, and there's been very little conversation. It's been mostly disbelief.
All right, Benny, thank you very much for joining us, and I guess we'll see you back here in the studio on Monday.
All right, John.
Once again, if you just joined us, fourth-generation NASCAR driver Adam Petty died Friday afternoon from injuries suffered in a crash during Busch Series practice at the New Hampshire International Speedway. Adam Petty was 19 years old. The entire NASCAR family is saddened this weekend by the death of young Adam Petty, who died from injuries suffered in a crash during practice Friday at the New Hampshire International Speedway. Petty was practicing for Saturday's Busch Series race at the track. He was planning on running for Rookie of the Year next season on the Winston Cup circuit. Adam made his debut in NASCAR's top series at Texas on April 2nd, just 3 days before his grandfather Lee passed away. Prior to that race, Bill Weber visited with Adam at home, where he still lived with his parents Patty and Kyle.
Now they're giving me a hard time because I'm 19 years old and I'm only the first Winston Cup driver in history to ever room with his brother and still live at home at 19 years old. So they're all giving me a hard time right now.
Does he still have chores, responsibilities to do around?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's going to have chores and responsibilities here even when he moves. He's still part of this family.
And this family is part of racing history. When he makes his Winston Cup debut, Adam Petty becomes the first fourth-generation athlete in professional sports history. It's the next natural step for a son dedicated to the dream of following his dad.
I think that pressure would be different if my grandfather and my father put pressure on me. They don't put pressure on me at all. Just go out and do the best you can week in and week out. Continue to learn. When you stop learning, something's wrong. You just got to go out and take that race as it comes and do your best.
You know, I think at 19, he doesn't know pressure. If he knew pressure, he would have never jumped in a Winston Cup car or a NASCAR car. He would have gone and been a farmer or gone and done something else. He would have looked after the horses for my wife.
Somehow in my mind, I always knew that they would end up racing each other. It's coming a little quicker maybe than what I thought. But I think he's worked hard. I think he's ready. The complexion of our sport changed when Jeff Gordon came in and at a very young age accomplished a lot. And so now our sponsors in our industry are looking for that next young talent. He brought more interest, sponsorship dollars towards young guys, but it also put more pressure on young guys like Adam.
Although Richard Petty still makes the final decisions at Petty Enterprises, Kyle now handles most of the day-to-day operations. And with Adam the heir apparent, Kyle's energy and attention are increasingly directed toward the future.
He's put so much effort and wants Adam to do well. So much, even more so than himself. He puts Adam lots more in front of his own efforts.
How long would you say Kyle's been doing that?
Wanting Adam to do better than himself all his life.
I don't look at it as a sacrifice. I don't think you look at things as a sacrifice for your kids. And that's a love thing. That's not a sacrifice, you know what I mean? If I had to get out of this car today and let Adam drive it, then that's what I would do.
Sometimes that hurts him in his own career, and that's the bad thing. He's got such a good heart, just like right now. Trying to build Petty Enterprise to how it used to be is just taking tons away from his driving on the weekends. I think he's still giving 100%, but he's got so much on his mind that he can't concentrate fully. But he's got such a good heart. He's trying to do the best for everybody.
Kyle is not only obviously his father, but now he's also, to a certain extent, his boss.
I don't think I've ever heard it put like that. He's him being my boss. That's pretty neat, though.
Do you think about that at all?
No.
No?
Not at all.
Is he your boss?
But he doesn't treat me like one. He's just a father, and that's the neat thing about it. Best friends. I can tell him anything. I'll lay in his bus till 11:30 at night talking about stuff, and we can talk about anything in the world. And you know, still to this day, we meet in Mom and Dad's room every night to say prayers and give them a kiss before we go to bed. But we're a close-knit family. We all get along very, very good.
And that family will draw itself even closer now as it mourns the death of young Adam. Lowe's Motor Speedway President Humpy Wheeler says this untimely loss will touch all of us deeply for a long time to come. We'll be right back.
It's devastating to the sport, and it sure puts a bleak outlook on all of our weekends. And but you know what? You know, our hearts and our prayers are going to be thinking about him. And only thing I can do right now is go out and win the race for Adam Petty. So again, just a great family and a great kid that was breaking into the sport. And won't ever get an opportunity now, but the time he was here meant a lot to the sport. So we'll miss him.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. said it is a real blow to hear this news. Adam and I came into the sport at roughly the same time, so I looked at him almost like a classmate. We shared a lot of interest and we shared a lot of laughs. He was always smiling and easygoing. It is a tremendous loss for everyone associated with NASCAR racing. Earnhardt Jr. also said that he wants to send his deepest sympathies to the Petty family. They have done so much for everyone in this sport. Despite the fatal crash, the NASCAR Busch Series drivers qualified at New Hampshire on Friday, and it was Tim Fedewa winning the pole position with a lap of 130.247 miles an hour. Casey Atwood, who was a good friend of Adams, starts Saturday afternoon's race from the 5th position. Elton Sawyer turned the 7th fastest lap in qualifying at 128.545 miles an hour. Point leader Jeff Green starts from the 12th position after his lap of 128.139. Rookie of the Year contender Jimmy Johnson qualified in the 13th spot, followed by Todd Bodine in 14th. Jason Keller starts 17th after a lap of 127.761. P.J. Jones, whose crew chief Christian Lovendahl was killed in a passenger car crash last Friday, qualified in the 19th position. The Kart FedEx Championship Series races this weekend in Japan, where Juan Montoya will start the 500-kilometer race at Twin Ring Motegi from the pole position. Montoya won his second pole of the year with a fast lap of 212.54 miles an hour. Kenny Brack blew the engine in his primary car on his first lap. He then made it back onto the track for one lap in his backup car and grabbed the second starting position. Montoya's teammate Jimmy Vasser starts third after a lap of 210.788 miles an hour. Mauricio Gugelmin starts 7th after a lap of 209.379. Michael Andretti ran the 8th fastest lap in qualifying, but the big story where Michael is concerned is the penalty handed down Thursday by CART for the contact he made with his crewman at Rio.
We were penalized in the race for it, and then to be double penalized, you know, after 2 weeks later, it just was very disappointing the way it all came about, because, you know, it's too arbitrary the way the rule is. I think it should be either black or white. You know, I mean, it was really a terrible thing for Todd to get hit, but you know, we got to do something about the pits. You know, we got to do somehow. They got to figure out a way of making sure the guys are clear before you can go, you know, some sort of procedure that everybody has to do.
We would have very much liked to have been able to respond at the event. Unfortunately, the information that we had as to the condition of the injured crew member was not available to us until after the event. Of course, it's a pretty busy part of our season. We wanted to get back and meet with the team to review this activity with them before we made a final decision.
Checking out the rest of the starting lineup for the CART Japan 500K, Elio Castro Neves starts from outside the 7th row. Dario Franchitti continued to struggle in qualifying and rolls off from the 17th position. His teammate and current point leader Paul Tracy will have a long way to go to get to the front after posting the 20th fastest lap in qualifying. Adrian Fernandez, who's won the circuit's first 2 visits to Japan, starts a disappointing 15th. RPM Tonight. We'll be right back. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series races in Memphis on Saturday afternoon. It'll be Bobby Hamilton on the pole after a lap of 118.043 miles an hour. Last year's race winner Memphis, Greg Biffle, starts from the second spot. Truck Series point leader Mike Wallace grabbed the 9th starting spot after his lap of 117.162 miles an hour. Dennis Setzer rolls off 11th. Rookie Kurt Busch earned the 13th starting position with a lap of 116.817 miles an hour, while Andy Houston starts from the 18th position. And as you look at the drivers starting 19 through 25th, they too were saddened to find out about the tragic accident at New Hampshire that took Adam Petty's life.
You know, it's hard to put this in words, and I mean, the best thing we can say is our hearts and our thoughts, our prayers, and everything's with the Petty family. I mean, obviously, you know, they're tough people and all, and this is a tough deal, but, you know, we're going to get through this weekend and get home as quick as we can.
Our hearts and prayers are with them. I mean, Carla and I, my wife and I, you know, lost a child, and I know exactly what they're going through. There's going to be a lot of people that tell them that they know what's happening, but they don't. And it's actually the most devastating moment they'll ever have. And, you know, Adam was a great kid. He really was. As an individual, forget the racing side of it. He had a tremendous talent in the race world, but he was a good kid. This past week, matter of fact, Carla and Lindsay, my daughter, spent some time with him up there as they come back from their motorcycle ride, you know, and talked to Lindsay a little while ago, and she's just heartbroken over it. And, you know, Patty and Kyle and the whole family, you know, our hearts and prayers are with you because it's a tough time right now.
RPM Tonight is a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of the Go Network, go.com.
Keep up to date with all the happenings in the world of motorsports this weekend by watching RPM Tonight and RPM Today. Reese Davis and company have a complete update on Saturday's action at 7:30 Eastern right here on ESPN2. RPM Today comes your way Sunday morning at 11:30. Once again, some very sad news. 19-year-old Adam Petty died from injuries suffered in a crash during practice Friday afternoon at the New Hampshire International Speedway. Everyone who knew Adam will miss him very much. We'll see you back here Monday. Good night, everybody.